Hi guys, hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you've had a sensational day. Okay, so it's food allergy week and tonight we're answering 3 key questions relating to milk allergies. You know, when we think of food allergies that affects children, we generally think of peanuts, tree nuts and eggs. But did you know that 1 in 10 infants under 12 months are intolerant to milk protein, and 1 in 2 of that group are also intolerant to soy? Interesting. Now, symptoms of milk allergy can vary and range from mild reactions to severe allergic reactions, which is anaphylaxis. Now, some children experience symptoms immediately, but in others, their symptoms can actually take time to develop. What's of concern really is that milk is a common ingredient in so many foods. So for that reason, we really need to be better informed to identify the risks. And to help, we are joined by our awesome guest, Caroline Partridge, and she's a founder of Aussie Allergy Mum. How you doing, Caroline?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Rach.
Awesome. Now it's food allergy week, so it's a massive week for you. And we've published your article titled Milk Allergy, the common beginning to the food allergy story. So for someone who hasn't read your article, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what it's about and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, so very commonly when I'm talking with other allergy families, and in the case of my allergy child, our journey began with the diagnosis of cow's milk protein intolerance.
Oh, it started that way.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's quite common actually for that to be the case. And so I wrote this article to basically give parents a bit of an overview of what cow's milk protein allergy or intolerance is, the kinds of symptoms that they might see in their child, and then what they can do to have their child diagnosed and then to manage the condition moving forward.
All right, cool. And there's some really awesome stuff in the article, and we're going to have a link, as we always do, at the the bottom of the introduction paragraph. We've got the 3 key questions, but there's a couple of things I just wanted to ask your opinion on, which I was reading earlier today on the Allergy and Anaphylaxis Australia website. They highlight some key issues and points that are really quite interesting on this particular topic. Now, the first one is an allergy to cow's milk and related dairy products is very different to a lactose intolerance. And I think a lot of people probably think they're the same, but they're different, aren't they?
They are. They're fundamentally different. So an allergy is to the protein of the cow's milk,
Yep.
and lactose intolerance is actually an inability to break down the sugar. So it's a completely different component of the milk.
Yep.
And lactose intolerance is actually extremely rare in young children. It's much more common as we get older. So most babies that have issues with dairy are having issues with the protein rather than the sugar.
Well, there you go. Yeah, and I've never heard of it in babies before, to tell you the truth. So that's, yeah, which is interesting. This is another thing. Deli meat slices are usually and frequently used as a bit of a cross-contamination between meats and cheese products. So I guess that's something to be, considerate of when you actually go into a deli and asking questions and or maybe buying, I don't know, prepackaged things. Maybe, do you think? Is that something that we should be aware of?
So generally with pre-packaged food, it's a requirement in Australia that it have a warning on it for contamination with dairy, because dairy is one of the top allergens. But when it comes to the deli section, you don't have those requirements for the cross-contamination to be written on a packet, because there isn't actually a processed food packet. And so most families that are dealing with a dairy allergy will generally just steer clear of a delicatessen in general, because the risk is just too high.
Well, I guess maybe it's a valid point for friends and family if they know that, and they're visiting a child and or they're having them coming over for dinner or what have you. And even though we're just saying on that particular article I was reading about, the gloves can actually sort of have the cross-contamination. So maybe just stay clear of delis altogether. This is something that's really interesting. Many non-dairy products use a milk as a binder, and this can include in some brands of like even canned tuna and of course other sort of processed meats. So milk can actually be like anything, I guess, with a nut allergy, you have to almost read all of the labels. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's actually wine products out there that have a warning for containing milk.
Sure.
which was something I would never have thought of. So yeah, you've just got to read everything.
Yeah. And even be aware when eating out in restaurants and that sort of stuff, a lot of foods, if they've got a shine to them, they said that milk can actually be used to give food like that glazed appearance. So you have to be careful and even let maybe a waiter or someone know. This is interesting. A milk juice can actually contain milk protein. What the? Like, really?
Yeah, so the fruit juice one is really interesting. And there's definitely, often issues with coconut water and coconut milk products having contamination with dairy that's not on their packet, which it should be. So you just have to be super careful.
And this is the one that really got me, to tell you the truth. Milk protein has been added as an ingredient to bottled water. Like, what the? And they're just saying, although that they probably do correctly label these things, people have actually been caught out. So is that serious? Like, really, really, that happens?
Yeah, it does.
Bottled
Unfortunately,
water?
it does. Yeah.
That's crazy. All right, well, so just going back to your article, you've got tons of stuff in there, so we'll refer to it sort of throughout the chapter. Well, let's get stuck into the 3 key questions. So question number 1 we've got for you tonight: why is milk allergy the common beginning to an allergy story?
Yeah. Okay. So the first answer to the question is that it is the most common allergy for children under the age of 12 months. And the statistic currently in Australia is about 10% of children are affected by cow's milk protein.
Wow.
So that means that out of, every 10 babies that are born, one of them has an intolerance or an allergy to cow's milk protein. So that's why often the journey starts with cow's milk. And I use the word starts because for a lot of families, that's the first thing that they're aware of, because they might be using formula products, or they might have a child that is so sensitive to dairy that they're actually sensitive to the proteins that are passed through the mother's breast milk.
Yep.
So it's quite common for children to be diagnosed with cow's milk protein intolerance and allergies even before 3 months of age. And at that point, they generally haven't ingested other foods. And so that's sort of the start of what can then become, more of a journey and the discovery of whether there's further allergies.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned in the article symptoms of cow's milk protein intolerance or allergy in babies include some of the following. You mentioned vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, rashes, irritability, and sleeping issues, slow weight gain, stomach pain, and mucus or bloody stools. Goodness me.
Yeah. So that's a pretty comprehensive list of different things. Not every child has every one of those. So they might just have a combination of those things going on. And in a lot of children who are diagnosed initially with reflux, it's then discovered down the track that the reflux is actually caused by the cow's milk protein. And so the removal of dairy actually helps with the treatment of the reflux.
Yeah. Well, let's get stuck into question number 2. What should parents do if they suspect their child may have an allergy?
Yeah, so it's really, really important that if you think you're dealing with an issue like this, that you do actually make contact with healthcare professionals, because getting a proper diagnosis and a proper treatment plan and a care plan is really important. So the first port of call normally is maybe your child health nurse or your GP, and you can talk through the symptoms with them. And generally they'll refer you on to a pediatrician, and from there, maybe to an allergy specialist that can actually do allergy testing and see whether this is an allergy that's likely to result in a severe allergic reaction, and then just create a plan for the child's safety, and also give the parents really good information around what they should and shouldn't be doing, things that they need to look out for, and all of those kinds of things.
So going back to, like you were saying earlier on, with you've gone through this experience yourself. Can you give us a little bit of a backstory about how, I guess, your situation sort of evolved and grew and that sort of stuff? That'd be great to know.
Yeah, totally. So my second daughter was born full term. We had a little bit of a difficult delivery. And in the few days that we were in hospital post her birth, we noticed that she did vomit after feeds quite a lot.
Wow.
And she was quite unsettled. She screamed a lot. And I noticed that she was quite different to my first child. And I thought, maybe that's just her. It hasn't been a smooth road. but she was definitely bringing up really like quite large amounts of milk. She didn't gain weight well over the first sort of 10 days to 2 weeks, which is something that they always, keep an eye on. They want them to get back to their birth weight and then, start to gain quite well each week. And she just didn't gain weight as well as she should have. And I kind of had a bit of an idea that that was possibly because she was vomiting up so much of the milk that she was drinking.
Wow.
So about the time she was about 4 weeks old, I was actually talking to my mum, and my brother had actually had cow's milk protein intolerance. And my mum said, yeah. And, we do know that there is a genetic component to allergies. And so my mum suggested to me, she's like, maybe you should cut the dairy out of your diet and see if it makes her any better. And by that time, she did actually have eczema sort of all around her face, and her body was often covered in rashes. She really didn't sleep. Like, there was definitely something going on. So we did cut out dairy, and we actually cut out soy as well, because as you said, about 50% of children that are allergic to dairy are also allergic to soy. So we cut out both, and it made quite a significant difference to her skin, to the amount that she vomited, and she actually started to gain weight. So that was the beginning of our sort of story, and she was diagnosed with cow's milk protein intolerance. Unfortunately, we then did progress down the track of discovering a lot more allergies, and so our story was a bit more complicated, but that was definitely the starting point of the whole process.
Yeah. You mentioned in the article that 90% of infants outgrow the intolerance to milk by the age of 2. So is that something that happened with your daughter, or does she still have that intolerance now?
Yeah, so she did outgrow hers, but she outgrew it somewhere around the age of 5.
Okay, so longer, yeah.
She's now 6 and she's able to tolerate dairy products. So they're, obviously for each child it's different, but I think dairy tends to be one of the allergies that children do outgrow, whereas peanuts and tree nuts, the statistics are not as good.
Not as good. Yeah, and you do mention that you said a very small percentage of these children will go on to be that are diagnosed with a milk allergy will actually develop into more life-threatening symptoms, anaphylaxis. So it is something that it can actually continue on, and in your case sort of lead on to other sort of allergies. Yeah, and that is sort of quite common as well, I would think, is in most cases.
Yeah, it can be, and it certainly tends to be the cases that you hear about, because the more complicated stories are the parents that need the most support. And so we definitely have a lot of families in our community that are dealing with very complex situations.
Yeah. And is this the story that I guess inspired you to found and sort of and open sort of Aussie Allergy Mum?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If I had not have had her, none of this would have happened. And it really started out as an organic way of sharing our story and finding other people that were going through similar things. And it's just grown from there into a massive support network of Aussie families that are going through the trials and tribulations of allergies with their children. And, when it's 1 in 10 under 12 months, that's a lot of families.
A lot. And do you find a lot of families just don't know where to start
Yeah, they don't know where to start. And, they either have a long road to diagnosis trying to work out what on earth is wrong with their child, or they're in the unfortunate situation where they feed their child something and they end up in hospital, and all of a sudden their life just changes in the space of 5 minutes and it will never be the same again.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to have a support network around you and some people around you that actually get what's going on for you, because it's like nothing else.
Well, this is a beautiful segue into our question number 3. So the theme of Allergy Week is reaching the newly diagnosed. So the question is, how can Aussie Allergy Mum, that's you, help allergy families who are just starting their journey?
Yeah, so our allergy education and advocacy is kind of in 3 arms. So we offer workshops for families for first aid and for allergy basics. Then we also offer free and paid resources, and we've got a course that we have that really goes through and breaks down what allergies are and how they work and what to do about them and how to feed your children and all of those things that you might not necessarily get in a brochure from the doctor the day that you get diagnosed, unfortunately. And then we have a couple of really supportive groups that we run that basically just connect families with other families that are in similar situations.
Yeah.
There isn't always someone in our immediate group of friends that's going through the same thing. So we try to connect people, whether that's virtually over the internet or face to face, with people that can, you know, support them and be there with them. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And particularly this week, it's all about reaching out to people who are newly diagnosed and feeling overwhelmed and anxious and understandably fearful that something might happen to their child.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll have links, I guess, that or can you provide us some links to put into the paragraph so people can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those groups. No, and I guess anyone watching, if you or a child that you have in care have a severe allergic reaction, obviously, you know, be sure to call 000 and ask for an ambulance. But, you know, visit your doctor and your specialist, you know, to be able to understand the reason behind the allergy. And the best way to manage a milk allergy is to avoid all products containing milk under medical supervision. But obviously these are the things that I guess in your group, that all the information that you would be sort of giving all of your families, and, you know, speak to your doctor about making action plans, I guess, for all severe allergic reactions, because it is something that I guess to a lot of families, and as a question to you, a lot of your families have probably had no experience with anyone with any allergic reaction. So sometimes this is the very like you. Like,
no. And that's the thing, like if you go back to even our parents' generation, it was so rare that somebody have an allergy.
Yeah.
And now it's so much more common. And aside from wondering why that is, it just is reality. So, you know, that we definitely need support, and we need to have plans in place to make sure that our kids are safe, but also included.
Yeah. So look, for any other families that want to get in touch with you, what's I guess your web address and whereabouts can they find you otherwise? We'll have the links there, but just so you can let them know.
Yeah. So you can head on over to the website, which is www.aussieallergymum.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest, pretty much wherever you are, under the handle Aussie Allergy Mum.
Thanks so much for the chat tonight. It's awesome speaking to you, and can't wait to catch up soon. Take care.
Thanks so much, Race. Bye.
Bye.